was a dying-related incident. A dying-related incident. Good evening and welcome to the October 16th, 2019 regular meeting of council. And we're resuming the public meeting at 7:10. At this time, I'm looking to see if there are any emergent items from any of the councillors regarding the agenda tonight. Seeing none, administration, do you have some?
Thank you, Your Worship. We do. We have one item under items from administration, 7.4 Rogers Hometown Hockey Task Force. We also have two items in camera, item 14.1, item pertaining to FOIP Section 24, and item 14.2, item pertaining to FOIP Section 24. And also, we have a deletion, 7.1, Family Center Assessment Report.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And hearing that, council, we're looking for a motion from Councillor Corbeil.
I move the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much for your motion. You have all heard that motion that she was forced to do. All in favor? And that motion is carried, which brings us to presentations and recognitions. I don't believe we have anything tonight, but we do have item 4.
Your Worship, we do
Jennifer?
have one presentation, and Ms. Simpson, or sorry, Mr. Pretzlaff has.
Good evening and welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. I'm here today to introduce our new Family Center Manager, Craig Diltz. Craig has extensive experience working in arenas and other recreational facilities within Alberta. He previously worked at Winsport and at the Crosslink County Sportsplex in Claremont, Alberta. Craig brings a wealth of experience leading a large team of arena operators and has achieved a variety of certifications through the Alberta Association of Recreation Facility Personnel and the International Institute of Ammonia Refrigeration. So at this time, I'd like to just, again, welcome Craig to the town of Strathmore. Very excited to have him leading the Family Center moving forward.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome to the staff. Did you want to step up? I can put you on the spot if you want to say a few things. We'd love to meet you, and welcome to the staff. I think you're going to enjoy it at the town of Strathmore.
I mean, yeah, I don't have much to say. I'm very thrilled to be here. Looking forward to moving here, actually, and making this home. So, yeah. Thanks.
All right, congratulations, and again, welcome to our staff and to the town of Strathmore. And that brings us to item 4, delegations. We have 4.1, the Ministerial Association. Do we have someone in the crowd? Pardon me. Sorry.
I will speak.
Oh, Denise. Sorry. Councillor Peterson.
Because of my glasses. Thank you, Your Worship. So I would like to recognize that we have with us tonight Minister Pamela Scott, the United Church, Strathmore United Church is with us today. And she has elected not to speak. But Your Worship, I would like to bring a motion forward regarding this matter if, at this point, if you would be so tolerant.
Sure, but you mean it as far as this goes?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Your Worship, I would move that this council reinstate prayer at the beginning of each meeting of council, at the first meeting of council in each month, and that council request that the Ministerial Association of Strathmore take responsibility for scheduling people in to submit that prayer at that meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Is there any discussion? Or do you want to speak to it? Sorry.
If I could just speak to the motion. So we did this for a long time. It was a part of this council, and then at the onset of this council, we didn't do it anymore. And there were some considerations around a Supreme Court ruling in Quebec that was related to a single religion and a single prayer related to a single religion. I don't believe that is the case here. We're very inclusive in this community. We've had all of our members of the Ministerial Association, the Indigenous peoples that we share this community with, as well as members of the Falun Gong, have presented before our council. And I think it is a worthwhile consideration. I do believe that it makes us all a little bit more mindful and kindful. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion or comments from council? The only one I have is for administration. Is there anything that we need to consider as far as moving forward on a decision regarding that? I think Councillor Peterson addressed the fact that it would be a variety of religions. There would be no focus on one specific one. So that case you mentioned as far as Quebec would not be a factor.
Pardon?
Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. So administration might recommend to council possibly having a legal opinion on the matter, only because of that case in Quebec. And I think there's been other cases in Canada as well in regards to that. It just may be prudent just to do a little research, perhaps, on the matter. But definitely it's council's decision on moving forward with this or not.
Thank you, Jennifer. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. So a couple of things. First of all, I like the idea. I have absolutely no objections to the concept, and I've always supported the idea. My reading of the decision by the Supreme Court suggests to me that it was not, although it was focused on the Quebec case, it did not really deal with it. The result was not dealing with the Quebec case. It was a direction for all councils across this country. So I support administration's idea at this time. I have no problem with this. I just want to make sure that we're not in violation of a law, because I would not be able to support this, and I would be disappointed if this council did something that was in violation of the law. I'm unsure as to whether or not using a variety of different religions and groups makes a difference in regards to that law. From what I have read and looked at, I'm not so sure that it makes a difference. But certainly, if we could get an opinion and they feel that the variety and the position that not one religion is focused on does make a difference in regards to that ruling, then I'm all for that.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Peterson, did you want to speak to that?
So I think that, when I read the case too, I do think that it was because it was focused solely on Catholicism, and that did have a bearing. I have no problem if we want to hold this motion until we have a decision. But I know that I think it's very important and I like Councillor Sobel's wording on how we seek out that legal opinion. If we seek out a legal opinion by saying, do we face any liability going forward? Well, council faces liability in almost every situation. But if we ask the question that Councillor Sobel stated, are we breaking the law? I think that's a very different question. And I think that is something that I would like to pursue. And if we are looking to build an inclusive process, this is not this council praying, by the way. This is people praying for us, which I think is a whole different matter than what we were seeing in that Supreme Court decision where the council was actually doing the praying. So I'm willing to do that, but I want to make sure that our legal opinion has the context right before we move forward. And I am prepared to withdraw the motion until such a time as that legal opinion is sought, and I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. And Jennifer, just to you, would November 6th be enough time for you to get information for us? So that would be the first
Absolutely.
meeting in November, the first council meeting.
If I could, I just
Councillor Sobel?
I just want to thank Councillor Peterson for that position. I think we'd all feel a lot more comfortable if we all know we're doing something that is 100% correct and within the boundaries of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Jennifer, and then Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just about the motion, just a suggestion, council could leave the motion on the table and just postpone the matter until November 6th.
That was my
That
intention.
sounds like a great idea. Thank you. And again, thank you very much, Councillor Peterson, for bringing it forward and being willing to just take a momentary step back and get on all the information we can.
And I think that is wise, Council, Your Worship, and I appreciate that. But I also want to thank the Ministerial Association because that's why it's here. It's not because of me. This came as a result of this large group of incredibly selfless and dedicated individuals that do enormous amount of good in the community in an incredibly loving and non-judgmental way. And I'm very, very grateful to them for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. And this brings us to item 5, confirmation of minutes. 5.1, the adoption of the regular council meeting minutes for October 2nd, 2019. Councillor Corbeil.
I move the council adopt the October 2nd, 2019 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And you've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. I believe we have no tabled items, so we move on to item 7, items from administration. We have delayed one to a later committee of the whole meeting, so that brings us to 7.2, Strathmore Commons Project Charter, which is on page 96, and Mr. Ethan Wilson is here tonight. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good evening. So I'm going to present tonight the project charter for Strathmore Commons. Our project charter is kind of our guiding document, keep us on track, both budget, schedule, scope of work, that sort of thing. The charter itself is about 5 pages and it's included in the agenda. But I'll give you the overview of everything, and then if we've got questions, feel free. So first of all, what is it? Strathmore Commons is a conceptual plan which connects the parks within the central corridor of Strathmore and allows for greater connectivity from all our communities. What we're talking about is areas that are currently known as Grays Park, Lambert Park, and Kinsman Park. What does it provide? So it connects the communities to the parks. Some things that we've got included in here are ways of connecting areas of town to this park system that we're going to refer to as Strathmore Commons. It expands our existing park spaces. It proposes adding future park spaces through secondary scopes. And then it's also our guiding framework for future expansion. So how does it guide us? This overall plan, like I said, includes Grays Park, Lambert Park, Kinsman Park, and for now we'll refer to it as Center Street Park. Within that, we've done our Kinsman Park Master Plan. This was done earlier this year and late last year. And that includes Kinsman Park and what I refer to as Center Street Park. And then a small portion of that is also our new municipal building, which is under construction. So what we're looking to do through the rest of 2019 and 2020 is to do 5 different phases. One of them is Thomas Drive's pedestrian bridge. One is some pathway projects related to Strathmore Commons. One is the transition zone between our new municipal building and the current park. One is enhancements to our playground in Kinsman Park, and one is some maintenance work or enhancements to the spray park that exists. Thomas Drive Bridge, or pedestrian bridge, we've already got this item out for tender. We've used Lex 3 Engineering, who specialize in bridges, as well as Sedulous, who we've used on previous projects to help continue our relationship with the WID. This is going to be located at Thomas Drive and Centennial Drive. So we already have the gravel pathway that goes along the south side of our storm pond that goes right to that point, so we'll connect there. And then when I get to the next phase, we've got some more pathways that'll go from this bridge further south. Construction is restricted to the fall and the winter of 2019, and that's to align with what the WID has for requirements of working when there's not water in the canal. So that closes tomorrow for tender, and we'll know there how we sit related to our budget and what the cost of that'll be. Pathways project, so like I mentioned, is where this bridge will go is we're gonna put a connection further south. So where the bridge will go on the west side of the canal, we'll do a pathway all the way down to Park Lane Drive. Another one is Lambert Park Pathway, and this pathway came from concerns from the Lambert residents. They have had a bunch of people that actually cut through their property to go towards the library and that sort of thing. So they've asked for a formalized pathway to help reduce that concern. So we've included for that. And then there are many pathways within Kinsman Park, too many to show in one slide, but that'll be continuing what we've already got, part of our transition between the building and the park, and then hopefully continuing our regional pathway further south along Center Street. As I mentioned, we've got our transition with the municipal building. This is the master plan shown here, and we're gonna focus more on the portion that's between the building and the lake. Some of the portion over beside the parking lot for staff and overflow. But this would also be our main guiding document should we decide to implement the next phase in the next couple years or in the future. Everything in the master plan is just that. It's a master plan, it's a guiding document, it's not set in stone. We have the flexibility to change things, move locations if we see fit. This is just the recommendation. Playground enhancements. So we're gonna coordinate this project with operations. They've got connections. They do enhancements to playgrounds every year, so they know the people to talk to, the rough cost of what it should be. We're gonna look at a design build for this one, because it's a specialized thing and we might as well use the experts and their opinions. This one will be construction in 2020, but we're gonna look to tender this as soon as possible to try and get the best price. Understanding from the operations department that the longer you wait, the less likelihood you are to get either competitive pricing or any pricing at all. We haven't quite decided on what to do here, but we are looking at possibly additional equipment, a new play surface, and some adjustments to the landscape around the playground. And then the last one is the spray park maintenance. This one again would be coordinated with operations. Our original thought with this one was mechanical things, just get it working again. But the more we worked with operations, we understand it works good. It doesn't have issues. We don't need to spend the money to enhance it. That's part of their regular maintenance that doesn't need a big capital spend. So what we're looking at is either additional equipment or maybe a new soft play surface. The reason we're looking at the new soft play surface is there are options for grants. It's recycled rubber, that sort of thing. So anywhere that we can get help or more funding, we're all for that. To go along with this, of course, we've got risks. Main one being our budget. It's always a fixed item that cannot change. So as we get things tendered, we will work within our budget. We've got approximate costs for everything, but until we know hard costs, we'll work within that number. Public disturbances. We know already with our municipal building on concerns of residences. We're working in this area a lot. We're also going to work in other areas. So keeping the public informed is a big one. Contaminated soils. This is well known in the Kinsman Park area because of what used to be there. So that does have a cost associated with it. We do have a good idea of what that will cost, but again, that's one that until you dig it up, you don't know. Schedule. We are looking to get as much done as early as possible. The goal is to be done by fall 2020. So that is a very limited summer construction schedule, but we do have the opportunity to do a bunch of this stuff throughout the winter months. And then the last risk is public expectations. We are a town, we are spending public money, so we want to make sure that we are getting good value. We want to make sure that we're diligent on what we're spending, and that we're meeting the expectations of the public. Stakeholder engagement. So we do want to keep people informed. We want to keep people involved. And we're going to try and do this through different forms. Public information postings. This will mostly be Facebook and the newspaper. We have talked about neighbor handouts, and that would be more focused to the Lambert and downtown businesses. We know Lambert may or may not be on Facebook. The newspaper is only weekly, so if we need to get more information out there, a newsletter might be the best way to do it. Internal, external collaboration, I've talked about working with operations already. We'll also work with Tracy's group on grants, other funding opportunities if they're out there. Council updates, just like we're doing today, but again, if something changes, if, you know, a different idea comes up, I'm always willing to come here, present on that, answer questions whenever we need to do that. We're also looking, or we've already started doing a weekly write-up just to give everybody a update on where things are at week to week. And then project sponsor support. So for myself, that would be Ryan. He's there whenever I need him. He's always been a great guide, so I know that'll continue for the next year. Sure.
I actually consider that an honor.
So I think I have touched on everything schedule-wise, so some of this has already started because it is working with the municipal building. I mentioned the pedestrian bridge, we're gonna tender that and work through the winter. And then when we get into pathways and playground and the spray park, we're all gonna work to do that early spring and summer. If there's things like playground and spray park that we can get done before, say, school's done to limit interruptions, we'll absolutely do that, so. I'll take any questions.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for all your efforts and your staff's efforts throughout the various projects this summer, especially I know the Kinsman Ball Diamond was one that was on your plate a lot, and there were a lot of things to get done with that.
Thank you.
So we have questions and comments. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I have two questions, Ethan. I know that we talked at one point about the farmer's market becoming a part of this, but I don't see it in the project charter. So does it appear somewhere else?
The farmer's market, as it exists, isn't changing a lot. We've got the building that's there already. The plan through the new municipal building is we're providing better access to that area. And then also, and I know it's hard to see on this screen, but the farmer's market layout option there shows an expansion of the building through tents or their trailers or, you know, however they wish to do that. But the one thing, or the things we're providing through this is better access to the area for vehicles and more parking closer to the area.
So under the public expectations process, this is a public expectation. It was a public expectation when this council spent $175,000 on that farmer's market. The expectation of our community and the people that we entice downtown from their nice, warm, year-round area to come downtown, to enhance the downtown, by the way, just like the same reason for our municipal building, was that this would sooner rather than later become a closed-in building.
Okay.
With power and access to water. So I think that is something that you're going to get a lot of backlash from community.
So I can add to that, we are adding water. That is already planned. But I
The
would-
fact that you have an open-sided building.
Understood, yep.
Is going to be a huge problem. And it was certainly at the time that when we did that, and we were at that time talking about upgrades to the playground and the spray park, was a priority over both of those things.
Okay.
So I don't know if council would agree with me or not, but that certainly was in my purview and my understanding when we enticed that group from the Ag Society. So I wouldn't want them to think that that was done under false pretense. And my other question is around council getting weekly updates, but what about our website? So I know that we've talked about that. We've talked about, our mayor has been eloquent in speaking to the need for absolute visibility in terms of this project, in terms of timelines, updates, and financials, and having those available to community.
Yeah, so we're in the early stages, of course.
Your
but
sidekick is,
Feel free.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to steal this from Ethan here because this is actually, I have a mic, so I'll be the good guy and move over here. So this is going to be the focus for the infrastructure group over 2020, is doing a better job communicating. And one of the things Frida, who couldn't be here today, and myself have talked about is actually doing separate subpages for all of our capital projects, or all of our major capital projects, I should say, that are, that put the project charter up, that put regular updates on in a really formalized way. So if someone's wondering about the status of Kinsman Commons, type it in, and the project page will come up with sort of a dashboard, plans, as much information as we have available. And then just trying to work with comms to keep those rigorously updated, just so that it's fewer questions coming to us, it's fewer questions coming to council. It's making that everything that's publicly available, easily available. So that's one of the goals for 2020. I think we'll actually use the Kinsman Commons project as our first, because that'll be a good template.
Thank you, Ryan. And I'm just, with regarding the farmer's market, I really think that deserves to be on a council agenda in the very near future. I think it is a consideration that I expected to see here, and I think it needs to be discussed.
Thank you, Your Worship. And actually, that is one of the goals of bringing these. And again, we want to start bringing all the major project charters to council to make sure that the expectation that council has, that the public has, are sort of aligned with what we're putting down. And if they aren't, and this is a great instance here where there is a concern raised that perhaps the project charter doesn't match with what this group's expectation is, well, then we will bring different options and change it if required. That's very much the goal of this conversation.
Well, and very much the goal of bringing of enticing the farmer's market into the downtown was on the promise of a sliding process of affordability, to be able to put that into a situation where they could use it year-round, and that it would also, most importantly, be an adjunct to the downtown, and like our municipal building, for the same reason. So it would make sense that it would have some priority that doesn't currently show here.
So,
But I appreciate the work that's been
Your
done, and
Worship.
that's
So
in
what
front of
we'll
us.
do is we will reach out to the farmers market and get an idea what their expectations are. I'll give the tough news on this is, if there are budget implications, then we'll have to bring to council the decision whether we delay one part of this project charter and add that. But
Priorities, absolutely.
yeah, and so that's, as I say, thank you very much for that, because that's exactly the kind of commentary we were hoping to get out of the discussion today. So thank you for that.
And I appreciate that this before us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Thank you, Ryan. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I echo Councillor Peterson's, one of my questions was walls for the farmer's market building and electricity. So we covered that one. My next one was, and maybe I'm misunderstood, but I believe that Ryan, you came to us and told us that we could make a decision on another bridge, that we had enough money to do another bridge, and we discussed putting a bridge across the canal by the farmer's market building, that like right up there. But it's never been brought back, and it doesn't make sense to me to be doing one bridge and not the other bridge if we were gonna do two bridges.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, so with that, what we put together for this project charter was, when council was sort of given that menu of different options in, I want to say probably June? There we go.
Before July.
Yeah, before July. Sort of was a selection of different sort of levels of project, and absolutely, more bridges would be great, but the budget that council selected there was about that 3.8, I want to say 3.6?
3.9.
Yeah, so that's sort of what fit into those two first menu items that council selected. Moving forward, if an additional bridge is something that council is interested in, that would have to be a separate budgetary decision, but we can bring numbers on that,
No,
of
I
course.
thought that you actually came to us and said that there was money for another bridge, and where did we want to put it, and we discussed it. Yeah, I specifically remember, but I'll look it up. My other question goes to your advertising and so on and so forth. I have had numerous people ask me whether or not we can have a picture
Yes.
on site.
Yes.
Are we having a picture on site?
Yes, so I believe last Wednesday, exterior colors were chosen. I think it was when that was. So that was all we were waiting for.
And so there will be a
Yeah, we've got plans to put a few signs
Awesome.
around the site to depict what we're doing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. Well, I have a number of questions, but one is a comment. I'll start with a comment, and that's in regards to the farmer's market. I don't know if anybody saw that today, but we have walls. And they're,
We could leave those.
you know, well, I'm not sure if we just want to leave them as is, but it's an interesting idea what they've done. And if there was some way we can maneuver that into something that won't be easily damaged, because that is just a call to be damaged. You know, I mean, it solves a lot of issues, it solves a lot of problems, and it actually looks kind of nice, but if it's something that can be dropped down, I'm not gonna get into the details. All I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be $1 million project.
Yep, absolutely.
But anyway, it would be great to do that, but then, of course, we would need power for that building as well. So when the budget was approved for this item, I was very specific in the fact that I was concerned about the budget number because I didn't know where that was going. And I really don't know right now. And obviously, I don't think you know, Ethan. I don't think anybody knows right now. But it's extremely difficult for me to support a project when I don't know the cost of it. And I'd like to see another project done that might be cheaper. So unless we've got things somewhat costed out, I have some difficulty with a number of things. For instance, the spray park. So
Sorry.
budget-wise, we've gone into spray park maintenance. But, you know, we have had nothing but problems with that spray park, and perhaps it's a maintenance thing. But I don't know if you've seen that in the summer when it's 28 degrees, but there's no room to walk in that thing. It's incredible how busy that thing is.
Absolutely.
And of course, I know we had talked about recirculating the water as a water-saving measure, and I recall the number being over $200,000.
Yep.
My sustainability committee continues to research and try to find a cheaper way of doing that, because we feel it's a sad thing to use that kind of potable water on a summer basis and have it go and then get cleaned by our equipment and then go into the bow. It's just it's a sad thing.
Absolutely.
It just is. So I don't know where I sit on this stuff. I don't have any numbers. Oh, one question I did have, the Thomas Drive pedestrian bridge. So we're twinning the pathway on Thomas Drive?
No, the idea would to have a pathway on either side of the canal.
Well, that's basically twinning it.
Okay, fair, yes.
No, so help me out with that. I'm trying to figure out why we would do that.
The bridge is mostly a connection kind of straight across, as if Centennial Drive continued through the storm pond, right? We've already got the gravel
Yeah.
on the south side of the storm pond, so that would be the main intent. So this pathway on the other side of the canal would be the secondary intent.
And that's at Centennial.
Yes,
So I can understand the pathway heading north on the west side towards Grace Park.
yep.
Perfectly acceptable. But why we would extend that from Centennial south to Park Lane, I have no idea.
I mean, that's definitely something that we can alter based on these conversations. That's,
Well, no, but basically, we're talking an extra 100 feet. It's 100 feet to come back to Centennial, to the Thomas Drive Park.
Oh, I see. Like
It's only 100 feet, or 75.
behind
Oh, did you?
essentially, we'd have a pathway on both sides.
It's from
of the canal.
Centennial to Park Lane.
here, down this side.
Yeah,
Correct.
while the other one is very accessible and not a very far distance. So I just saved you, what, $500,000?
Not quite, but
I really want to see you back here with some numbers and maybe some more information, and, because this is very, and I appreciate it, this is very, very very, conceptual. It's a very conceptual plan, but we are talking about budgeting, and it's hard to budget with what I've got here.
Yeah, so, I mean, totally understand what you got. Because we're still tendering, that's why I've limited what numbers
Yeah,
are
I
in here.
know, I get it.
By all means, if we
I
want
get
to
it.
talk about those specific items in camera at some point, I am open to doing that.
I would love to do that, because what comes first, is the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
How do I get behind a project if I don't know if it's the right project
Yep.
financially?
Yep, so I think we've got a couple suggestions or comments already, and I'll bring both of those and whatever else we have back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. And just before I go to Councillor Corbeil, I want to follow up on something Councillor Sobel mentioned about that bridge at Centennial. And my question is, has there ever been any thought to having that bridge at Thomas come from Brentwood Drive east? And the reason I'm wondering is, on Centennial Drive, there are no houses along that whole stretch except the ones that back up farther east on Centennial. So there are no houses on that as far as easy access for people. On Brentwood Drive East, you've got homes all the way down going east, and you have Brentwood Elementary that's right on Brentwood Drive, and then Wheatland Elementary. All they would have to do is cross the street on Brent Boulevard, and they can basically come up Brentwood Drive all the way across the bridge into the wetlands. And both those schools have wetland study as part of their grade 5 science program. So I'm wondering if we're married to that idea of the bridge at Centennial, or if you guys could possibly look into the feasibility of having it at Brentwood Drive East.
So I did look at a couple of locations along the street. The reason I'm proposing Centennial Drive is it's kind of that halfway point along Thomas Drive. There are a lot of houses in that Thorncliffe area, and moving it up to Brentwood doesn't really benefit because the canal curves on the north end there. So anybody coming out of Brentwood, you could argue walking around the canal is no different than walking across the canal. So that was the main reason for coming south to Centennial Drive. The other thing is on that side of Storm Pond 1, we refer to it as, is there's two little other ponds, which would conflict with where the bridge crosses. We could definitely work around them. It's just this seemed to make the most sense to
Okay,
us.
thank you. And I don't want to, I don't want to get into operations or your decisions. You guys have all the experience. It was just a thought that I had had.
Yep.
We'll go to Councillor Corbeil now.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate this report, Ethan. Like, it was very thorough. It's very good ideas and stuff like that. But when we approved this budget, my expectation was to actually make more of the decisions as to what we kind of wanted to do. And I know we can still do that. But this, like, we're putting stuff out to tender. We're kind of doing all these other things. And I don't feel like we've had very much input. So with that, I was a little bit disappointed. And I want to clear things up. The parks keeps their names, right? Like, it'll still always be Kinsman Park.
Yes.
Right? Okay, you just said just formally, or known as now, so I was just making sure. I'm not very keen on the playground. We just did that upgrade.
Fair?
That was my one comment, and yeah, I would be for that. Like, I think that there's other things that we could put the money into rather than something that we just put money into. But yeah, those are my.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
For another week or
Couple
so.
weeks, yeah.
Thank you very much. The GIMP. So when we did the budget for this, one of the things that I thought was a great idea was Mr. Roycroft suggested that we tie some of the funding to having you guys have to seek out basically sponsorships to match the money, and we haven't kind of touched on that since then. And the other thing is, I guess I'll echo what the other councillors have said. And the other thing is we asked for basically an a la carte kind of pricing menu so that we could pick and choose which things we wanted to go with, like priority-wise, and spending that budget on. And I understand some of this, like the bridge, for instance, there's a bit of a time crunch, and we're probably going to go with that anyways. But there's other things here that are, I don't think, a priority of council, or at least we haven't kind of we haven't clearly spelled them out as priorities yet and decided what we want to have as to spend that money on. And so I think that we are Well, first of all, I'll say, like, the report's very good. You guys have done a good job on that. I just think that we need to maybe take a step back and kind of, first of all, like I said, kind of look at a menu of options so that we can make sure we're going down the right path. And then also, I did like that idea about tying some of the money to sponsorships or something to that effect.
Yeah, so I only briefly mentioned it, but we are working with Tracy's group on things such as grants and sponsorships. So anytime that we can get something that somebody's willing to sponsor, we will pursue
Well,
that.
I found it appealing that, like, that we could, put like a hard dollar amount on and say, like this last million, like you guys have to match that dollar for dollar rather than just kind of, like, you guys just kind of hoping for, a certain amount of sponsorship or something like that. So, yeah, I would hope this will come back anyways.
Ryan, did you want to address, did you want to address Deputy Mayor Montgomery's comments?
Yes, because that actually steals the thunder from sort of the next item, not today, that we'd wanted to talk about was exactly that, is with Ms. Simpson's group, we've identified a number of project items that sort of aren't part of this phase of the Commons that would be really suitable for sponsorship or other ways of funding. And so we're going to bring that to council as well to identify these items, things like exercise equipment and stuff that would be really well suited to this. I guess I made the call not to bring it to council with this just so that we weren't sort of mentally, I have enough trouble with it myself, mentally confusing these are sort of council funded, these are sponsorship funded, but absolutely we want to bring that part of the project back to council is what items we think would be really well suited for sponsorship, for naming rights, for, some of the grant stuff that doesn't necessarily fit for this. So absolutely, that's very much top of mind is bringing that probably to committee next month to talk
Okay.
about sort of that phase of the project and that phase of the project funding.
Yeah, and like, I guess just so that, like, you guys are not, kind of expending time, unnecessarily, I would suggest that we kind of look at, what we want to do before you guys are coming back and being like, hey, we got this, but it turns out we don't even want that, so, yeah.
Your worship, that's exactly it, is trying to make sure that council is very much feeling comfortable with the direction we're going before we move forward. So I think if I'm picking up some of the things that council would like to discuss at the next Commons discussion would be a really good focus on get an idea what the costs would be associated with enclosing and powering the farmers market. Talking about some of the sponsorship opportunities as well, I think now that we've talked about, I'll call it the other items. And then, making some decisions for council in terms of the priorities.
So
be
like,
fair?
like with this, I noticed, like, the playground, for instance, like, that's going to be put out for tender before we even meet again?
No,
Okay.
there is no set tender date. There is a suggestion to get it out as early as possible, but if council wishes to have input.
Oh,
or-
sorry, yeah, it was the internal consultation and scope confirmation. And so, like, given that, like, that's due to happen before our next meeting, I think we should probably hold off on that, just so that we can
Understood, yep.
weigh in on the scope, for instance. Okay, and so, thank you, and like I said, good job on the report anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. And just before we leave this, I had a couple of questions from residents. One came at the July 1st at Kinsman, and one came at the Show and Shine. And the question was, would part of our enhancements, would we ever revisit the idea of reinstating that stream that used to wind its way through Kinsman into the Kinsman Pond, to the lake? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
You're referring to the one that's east of the lake that goes
Yes.
towards the WID canal?
Yeah, it goes to the WID canal, yeah.
Yeah, so it is kind of there. I know it's overgrown and it's not in the best of state, so we could direct resources to clean that up. That wouldn't be a,
Well, the reason that people asked is they thought it was a nice little feature of the park to have a stream going through it into the, I mean, they liked the look of it, I guess. I didn't really grill them as to why they wanted it.
so our understanding was of the original intent of that was a secondary way to fill the lake, should we ever be in a drought.
Well, it brought fresh water or fresher water into
Yes.
from the canal. James?
If I may, Your Worship, I guess the staff's intention, as you saw tonight, was to bring forward project options to get feedback from council. And I wanted to know if it sounds like it would be more beneficial if we included some numbers in the project charter prior to, because it was our intention to get ahead of this and get council input early on before we even get into numbers, with the thinking being, if there's no interest of council, what's the point of doing the research to get the numbers? Because some of these things are more complicated to get information and numbers, and we're just testing, we're just trying to find out what you're looking for, and so that was the intention of bringing this forward now and early on before we get going in any of the other projects. So
Yeah,
you
I'm
want
thinking
lots of
that as
numbers.
you have all the projects, the council is looking for the cost scope on
Okay.
each of those big projects and what
Okay.
we're looking at as far as how they fall within the budget. Yeah, yeah.
No, and we don't either. That's why we didn't want to start throwing a whole bunch of stuff down there with numbers that,
And I think it's really beneficial, the discussion we've had tonight, because that pathway plan along the canal there by Thomas, that's a huge cost saving that can then be directed to the farmer's market
Absolutely.
pavilion. So this is good that
Yep.
we had this.
no, that's helpful.
Councillor Cox?
Absolutely.
I just want to take it that step further. I think both of the pathways that we're talking about aren't as big a priority as the walls and everything else. So, yeah. I mean, the actual pathway, like the one that's shown up there, is like the one that Bob is saying as well. But that small pathway right there that's leading from onto a private road isn't necessarily a priority versus our spray park.
I think that one has been identified as a priority because it completes the loop of the wetlands. It allows people to walk through, like if you're doing the wetlands loop, like for a Terry Fox run, for example, and it keeps people away from being too close to the Lambert Park.
I understand what you're
village.
saying, but except for that, that loop includes a private road. So technically, we shouldn't be encouraging all our people to be connecting on a private road.
Yeah, I
Do
understand.
you see what I'm
Yep,
saying?
I do.
Like, I understand that if you wanted to put a pathway there, you could put it possibly on an angle so it passes the library. I don't know. But right now, you have it connecting to a private road. So you're actually asking people to now run on a private road that we can't actually access.
And
So
that's
if
true, we
were
did
gonna have
avoid
a-
that.
If we are gonna have a Terry Fox run, we can't run down that road.
No, that is true, and maybe it's a matter of reconfiguring that pathway through Lambert.
Yep.
So
Yep,
if you
I
guys
can
can
look
look
at that,
into that.
absolutely.
No, that makes sense. If we reconfigure that pathway so it comes from the sidewalk, and we did bypass it for the Terry Fox run by the library, yeah. Councillor Corbeil? That's a good point. too.
Are you? Thank you, Your Worship. I was just gonna bounce off with this, like, even if we wanted this pathway, we could probably go through our pathways and that kind of budget rather than this budget as well, right?
That's true.
So.
That's a good point.
If we want to take a little longer, we have other places that could go.
But I understand the philosophy of it, because this overarching Strathmore Commons project is we're trying to tie all the different parks. Stop saying yep. Okay, thanks. Thanks for coming, Ethan. Are there any other comments from council? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Which brings us to item 7.3, the Center Street.
Do we have to make a motion to accept for information?
No.
We don't have to, thank you.
Center Street, new report, page 103. Michael, you're speaking to this, and Kelsey? Oh, good. Good evening and welcome. Welcome back, Kelsey. We haven't seen you in a while.
I know, thank you.
Thanks.
Ethan, what did you press?
Down here.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I thought you guys were all ready to roll. I'm chatting away with Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
That's
Good evening,
okay.
welcome again.
So we're here to just report on our findings along Center Street with the 40-kilometer-an-hour request that came in. So the area concern was along Center Street from Park Lane Drive to Archie Clyber Trail. You guys have a bigger map. The one on screen is very tiny for you to read. So it's outlined in the green. There was a pedestrian crossing concern, which also has been identified in the map in blue. So from here, we looked at our 40-kilometer-an-hour implementation criteria. Step A deals with wide roads, B deals with the pedestrian environment, and C deals with the road and traffic environment. So when looking at A states pavement width equal to or more than 10.5 meters where the operating speed's 85th percentile is equal to or less than 50 kilometers an hour. So the width along Center Street is 12 meters, which meant that we had to put up our armadillo, which is our traffic counting device. And so we put that up for 7 days. It collected the speeds and how many cars drive along that road. So based on that, our 85th percentile along that road is 55 kilometers an hour. So looking at that, criteria A was not met. So we continued on with criteria B. Criteria B deals with the pedestrian environment. Any school is adjacent to the roadway. No, there is no school there. So we looked at the road is adjacent to the parkland that has access to the school or park, recognized educational/recreation facility. Yes, it's right next to Kinsman Park. No sidewalk on either side of the road. There is sidewalk on both sides, so that was a no. Number two there that we can look at is the sidewalk is not separated from motor vehicle traffic by street parking or bike lanes, and the traveled portion of the road width is less than 5.7 meters. That one ended up being a yes as well. So we moved on to the last portion we look at is C, which is the road and traffic environment. 2 or more locations of concern with curves with a safe speed of less than 50 kilometers an hour. There are no real huge curves along that road, so we checked mark no. Lack of sufficient distance to stop safely at 2 or more locations when traveling 50 kilometers an hour. That is also a no. And a pattern of collisions where vehicle speed was identified as a factor. That was a no. Step 2 in that section, where long-term parking is permitted on one or both sides and the remaining traveled portion of the road is less than 5.7 meters for two-way operation or 4.0 meters for one-way operation. There is no long-term parking on that road, so it is a no. So conclusion, when we put all those sections together, because that section of roadway is greater than the 10.5 meters, A has to be met in order for us to implement a 40 kilometer an hour along that roadway. B was satisfied, but C was not as well. So conclusion was that criteria A needs to be satisfied because the width is greater than the 10.5 meters. Criteria A was not satisfied, therefore a 40 kilometer an hour zone will not be implemented along that section of Center Street. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your report. It was very clear, and I appreciate being able to walk through it on our screens. It made a lot of sense, so much appreciated. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for this report. One question I had was, so there's, like, obviously, like, you know, there's kind of like trees right here, and so like
Yep.
that kind of, you know, prevents people from seeing around that corner. Did you guys determine what so like I used to be in highway construction, and one thing we had to kind of account for was when you could see, like let's say a road crossing, you had to kind of account for, you know, the time, like, so it's like, you know, if somebody's coming over a hill, you know, and there's only like, you know, 1 second in between me seeing them come over the hill, and so like, did you guys actually determine if they're sitting at that, like that housing area there, how much time they have to see a vehicle coming around the corner at, say, 50 kilometers an hour before, like, so they can react to it?
We didn't actually time it. We did drive it. We did sit at that intersection. If I had to guess, it would be over 5 seconds, but I don't have an actual number there. At no point when I was driving southbound and northbound up Centennial or Center Street, or sitting at that intersection to enter northbound, southbound, I had a concern for visibility. The sight triangle was completely clear from that intersection. That corner where the trees are, yes, on that corner, but it's a significant distance south of that entranceway. So you would have to be traveling at a great rate of speed northbound to be hidden so someone's leaving that road.
Okay.
But we did do the 85th percentile, and the speed is 85% of the vehicles traveling, and there was 20,000 vehicles over that time.
Yeah.
And the 85th percentile was only 55 kilometers an hour.
Okay. Yeah, I just think like in the future, when you guys are analyzing something like, it would be worth knowing just the time that somebody has to see a vehicle coming, just because, and using like the average speed and whatnot, just because it'll help make the decision a lot easier. If we know, yeah, they have 5 seconds to see a vehicle coming, it's like, yeah, no brainer, right? If it's 1 second, then it's like, okay, well maybe, even though it's only 50 kilometers, maybe there's an issue, right? So, just in the future, I think we should.
I think going forward, we can do, if it's a 40 kilometer an hour criteria, we can time it at 40, we can time it at 50 and present that for the next.
Yeah, that's a good idea,
And
actually.
it will give you an exact time of how long you have.
Yeah, because then, like, if somebody from that community comes to us and says, hey, why did this go this way? We could say, well, we know, even over and above what you guys have presented, it's like, we know you have enough time to see a vehicle coming, so, it's a safe thing. So, but that's a good idea, though.
Yeah, no, it's
So,
a great idea.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question, and it may be a silly one, but I was looking at like the counts and if 5-day, 7-day, is that just day 5? Because it doesn't make sense that 7 days lower, average daily. Do you know what I mean?
Are you talking about the?
The average daily. And then even like the AM peak, like what I'm asking is, okay, is that like, or did you take day 5 or is that 5 days and
That's
7
5
days?
days.
That's 5 days.
And then that's 7 days?
And it's average, because some days are slower than others, depending on the workday. So Monday to, if you look at Monday to Friday, because we did it over a complete 7-day calendar week.
Okay,
there's
then
some
maybe I
high-
am confused, because in 7 days, there's less vehicles than a 5-day.
But it's from the peak, so it's from 4 o'clock to 5
Oh,
o'clock.
okay.
So,
But the average daily is dropped, that's my question.
yeah, so from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, you're doing the 5 days is
Okay.
Monday to Friday.
Yep,
4
I
o'clock to
understand now.
5 o'clock
got
is
it.
Completely
Monday.
understand now. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, Kelsey and Michael. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'll start with a question. Are you aware of any collisions that have occurred on that roadway? Thank you.
I am not.
So I'd just like to make a comment that the Traffic Advisory Committee have dealt a lot in regards to speed, roadway speeds, et cetera, and feel they're basically, they're focused on basically two decisions to make. One is do we change the speed of our roadways for non-arterial roads as a whole, down to 40 or down to 30, which is done in some communities, or do we arrive at some sort of criteria to determine which roads should go to 40? And I know we had a pilot project, Cambridge Glen Drive and Center Street, north of Park Lane, and the criteria that was developed by Kelsey and Michael, speaks well to determining those speeds. And if I'm not mistaken, and I believe that you told me that both those roads would still result in a 40-kilometer-an-hour zone.
That is correct.
So the criteria works, and it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people that aren't comfortable on Center Street south of Park Lane, but somewhere along the line we have to have some parameters here. Either that or we just go full blown and we change everything to 40. we're still looking at that, at those speeds as a committee. But, there's obviously a lot of focus, a lot of information, a lot of research that has to happen in that regard. It's a dicey situation. So I feel bad for the people that don't feel safe on this, but it is, I think, by all reports, a safe road at this point. But things change, and that's one of the things that the second part to this recommendation is that should this roadway traffic, et cetera, change in the next year, and there's going to be a new entrance off that roadway into a parking lot, and it's very possible that may result in a lower speed. And I think our staff would be willing to have another look at this when and if that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Then I'll be entertaining a motion. Councillor Sobel.
Sure, I'll move that council accept the Traffic Advisory Committee's recommendation to not install 40-kilometer speed restriction signs on Centre Street at this time, and further that council direct administration to continue to monitor speeds and safety along Centre Street and to bring any new information to the Traffic Advisory Committee for further consideration.
Thank you for that motion. And just before I call the vote, Michael, I'm just wondering, will we be sharing this information with that group that came
I
forward?
will, I've already contacted them in pre to this meeting and let them know where we are. And I didn't give them any details or any decisions because it's council's
Okay.
decision, but I will be going back to them tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen on council, we've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. And thank you for your presentation, Kelsey and Michael.
Thank you.
Which brings us to item 8, committee reports, 8.1, reports from 7.4, sorry, Rogers Hometown Hockey Task Force. Tracy Simpson. I'm in a hurry to get out of here, I guess.
We'll be nice and quick, Your Worship. So before council tonight is terms of reference for a task force to establish some public engagement to support different aspects of additional events to coincide with the Rogers Hometown Hockey. The terms of reference before you are for a task force to be set up just for the remainder of this year until the completion of the event. We're recommending one member of town council, one member of Wheatland County administration, one member from Strathmore Minor Hockey, Strathmore Ringette, Strathmore Egg Society, as well as 3 staff appointments to the committee. So we're looking this evening for council to adopt the terms of reference and appoint a member of council.
Thank you, Tracy, for your report. It's much appreciated. And Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, I would move that we accept the terms of reference, and I would also move that this council appoint Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Tracy. Councillor Corbeil, did you have a question for Ms. Simpson?
Absolutely. Sorry, just a quick one. Have we even talked to the county?
We have talked to the
Okay,
county and
and
they've
they're good?
appointed someone, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just getting all my steps in here. Dave Rhymes, their recreation coordinator, will be on the task force. Yeah.
Thank you again, Tracy. So now we're on item 8, committee reports. Reports from councillors from committees on which they sit. Some of them have come to us in written form, so that's excellent. I wasn't expecting you to not talk about them at all, Councillor Peterson. I'm waiting for your angelic voice.
Ah, yes, so kind. Your Worship, WADEMSA's meeting on October 8th, the pertinent points from Councillor Corbeil and myself are with regards to the 2020 fire dispatch requisition, and that will not be changing in the coming year. There will be no advance, but there is further information on the report regarding this. And the other thing is that both Donna Bigger and Glenn Kester from County Wheatland will be again appealing to Alberta Health on behalf of WADEMSA regarding changing to 12-hour shifts for our WADEMSA staff. those are the two things. And of course, there's interesting reading here on the new Lucas 3 devices that our ambulances have for doing CPR. So the devices that they're using are proving to be much better than humans. And interesting reports from what EMSA regarding that. Councillor Bauer and I sit on the SOS, on the Strathmore Overnight Shelter. The pertinent part of that is that we were really desperate for new membership on the board, and Joanne Nelner and Melissa Massey have stepped forward, and we are very, very grateful to them. And Pastor Elizabeth and I met with Sergeant Randhawa, and I don't know if his title is Sergeant or Corporal Salmon. And Sergeant Salmon, and we had a wonderful meeting, and it was so gratifying to hear those officers speak about the difference that the Strathmore Overnight Shelter had made in their day-to-day policing. And Pastor Elizabeth and I attended the Ministerial Association, also really gratifying to hear the support from that group, and we're really grateful. And Councillor Cox and I sit on the Wheatland Housing Board, and the thing of import, I guess, there is that the every single bed in every room rather in the lodge is occupied. Every single house is occupied, and all of the social housing spaces are taken up, and there are about 95 families on waiting lists. So winter is coming, and our housing crisis is not easing. So those are my reports, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Peterson. Are there any other verbal reports? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Deputy Mayor Montgomery?
I beat you to it. I will move that we accept the council reports for information.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Item 9, items directly related to council. Don't believe we have any. And that brings us to 10, bylaws. 10.1, first reading land use bylaw amendment for 19 Lakewood Mews, page 113 of your brochure. Your travel brochure. Good evening and welcome tonight.
This is tourism, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
How do I get this to show up there? Just started? Okay. Perfect. Okay. Good evening, Your Worship. I'm here this evening to present bylaw number 1915 for first reading. Sorry, I'll have to double click these. As outlined in your report, a land use application has been received for 19 Lakewood Mews. I'm not sure why this isn't going. Sorry. It's showing it to me, but not to you. There we go. Is he going to click that? Okay, perfect. As outlined in the report, a land use application has been received for 19 Lakewood Mews. The proposal requests to rezone the parcel from a single detached residential small lot district to a site-specific direct control to allow for a discretionary use of secondary suite in the form of a basement unit. The proposal is situated in the community of Lakewood and surrounded by similar residential properties. Let's see if I just hit the arrow. Nice. The application proposes to add secondary suite to the list of uses for the parcel and proposes parking regulations that will be implemented at the development permit stage. Housing form, lot size, and curb appeal of 19 Lakewood Mews are proposed to remain identical to the single detached dwellings built in Lakewood. The proposed rezoning is in line with the policies of the Municipal Development Plan. Policy 3.2.1 7.16 of the MDP states that secondary suites are considered an appropriate method of providing additional and affordable housing in all residential districts if the additional parking requirements can be met and if secondary suite meets all safety and building codes. The future land, this proposal also meets the future land use concept in the Lakewood Meadows Area Structure Plan and also is in line with feedback received at the Emerging Opportunities event that was held in June of 2019. Recommendations in the Family and Community Support Services Needs Assessment from 2016 indicate one of the biggest issues brought up through the FCSS Needs Assessment public engagement campaign was the need for more affordable housing within the town of Strathmore. Strathmore is not unique in this issue. In fact, almost every community within the province of Alberta and across Canada has this same issue. The benefits of secondary suites can be seen by homeowners, tenants, and the community. Some benefits to the homeowners would include income boost, helping pay the mortgage, allowing homeowners to age in place, providing companionship, and the ability to downsize without having to move from your home. Financial lenders tend to look at secondary suites as a mortgage helper when approving mortgages, and more buyers who can afford a mortgage often lead to greater numbers of people who could be attracted to purchase a home in Strathmore. Tenants are also an important part of our community. A variety of housing typologies and affordable housing options would give benefit to tenants. Additional benefits to tenants would include accessibility, choice, community, multi-generational housing, and with approved secondary suites, they can be assured that their home is also legal and safe. Community benefits would include population and growth, increases in density, maximizing existing infrastructure, a variety of housing options, safe and legal renting stock, and potential increases in property values. Secondary suites are present in many communities. However, most or many are illegal and do not comply with safety requirements. The allowance of a secondary suite at 19 Lakewood Mews would ensure this option is reviewed, inspected, and developed in a safe manner, which meets bylaws and the Alberta Building Code. Bylaw 1915 was circulated to adjacent residents within 50 meters of the subject property via mail-out in accordance with the town's standard advertising practices for land use amendments. The application was also posted on the Town of Strathmore's webpage under bylaws under review and was advertised on the town's social media page. The proposal is requesting that council give first reading to, give first reading to bylaw 1915 to rezone 19 Lakewood Mews from single detached residential small lot district to a site-specific direct control district to allow a secondary suite to exist on the subject property. The Development Authority recommends, for the parcel located at 19 Lakewood Mews, that council establish November 20th, 2019 as the date of public hearing as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I read your report and, I'm all for everything, but I have a concern and I just want to know, it didn't get addressed in any of this.
Sure.
Councillor Cox, we don't.
Stated in a question for clarification.
Oh, for clarification is what you're looking for? Because all we're doing
yes.
is first reading to bring it to a public hearing.
But I need to know this before I can make a
So you can ask in
decision.
second reading.
Okay, should I ask it in second
Yeah,
reading is what you're
absolutely.
asking?
Unless it's a clarification on the information you have here.
No, it's
Okay, all right.
something that's missing.
Yeah.
Wait.
Okay, yeah, so after second reading then, I guess. So I'm looking for a motion for first reading. Councillor Corbeil.
Move the council give first reading to bylaw number 19-15, a bylaw redesignating 19 Lakewood Mews from R1S to DC, and that council hold a public hearing for bylaw number 19-15 on November 20th, 2019.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor now, but it's not going to go to a second motion now. So can she ask her question of clarification following the motion for first reading and the date of the public hearing?
It's a question with regards to something that's missing from the document. it makes sense if that's a clarification.
Your worship, right?
Your worship, that would be appropriate. At this time, I may ask my staff not to answer that. However, we could include that as supplementary information before the public hearing. So, yeah, absolutely, now's the appropriate time, but we may choose to, maybe best to include that. To defer the answer. Yeah.
Okay,
So that
so,
you can find the answer.
Exactly.
Okay. So my question is, which we've already approved the fact that these houses are now subject to a homeowners association. So now that there's a basement suite, now you've brought in a whole nother family. How does that work for access to the lake with respect to the homeowners association fees? Because now if the people upstairs are paying the homeowners association fees, but only for one family per year, now you have two families per year taking advantage of a lake situation that is supposed to be exclusive to those homeowners. Does that?
Yep.
Okay.
Your worship, so with that, because that would be a developer's answer, we'll ask the developer to provide information to council prior to the second hearing, as it may have bearing on your decision. So we'll ask Neil to put something together.
okay, thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you very much for your question, Councillor Cox, that I do understand where you're going with that now. So that's much appreciated.
Thanks, Dan.
So we have a motion on the floor for first reading and for the public hearing. All in favor? And the motion is carried. So there will be a public hearing on November 20th, 2019, and you'll have that time period to talk to the developer. And are you staying for the next one as well?
Yes,
Welcome back.
thank you. There we go. There, we'll see if this one will work. Good evening again. I'm also here this evening to present bylaw 1912 for first reading. See if this will work. Perfect. As outlined in this report, a land use application has been received for the property at 717 Westlake Road, and a proposal requests to rezone the parcel from commercial highway to a site-specific direct control district to allow for the discretionary use of auto body and paint shop in this location in a portion of the existing building. So it's highlighted here on the west side of the building. The proposal is adjacent to a recently approved welding shop, an existing salvage yard, a landscaping company, and highway commercial developments such as Subway and Lube City to the south. Land use bylaw 1411 currently contains a definition for auto body and paint shops. However, the use is not listed in the commercial highway district. The proposed direct control will allow for Fix Auto to provide services for vehicle collision repair, auto glass repair, and sales at this location, rather than having a portion of their services listed under auto body and paint shop, which are their repair services, and actual collision services, and then another portion of their services would have to be listed under automotive and equipment repair shops, which is the auto glass replacement. So this DC would allow them to do both of those things in this location under commercial or previous commercial highway district. Conditions have been added to ensure the site is well maintained and no vehicles would be parked on the street or cause issue. So we've added in conditions such as keeping the service bay door closed except for when being used by vehicles to exit or enter, and also not keeping vehicles outside a building or screened enclosure for more than 72 consecutive hours. The municipal development plan policies under section 2.3 of economic development and section 3.4 of commercial development both support the proposal, stating that the town shall promote Strathmore as a strong business center, search for new and innovative industries to relocate into the town, and encourage businesses that provide employment to reduce the need to commute. The policies also state the town shall seek to attract commercial developments to further substantiate Strathmore's place as a regional service center and provide employment and growth to the community, while encouraging revitalization and the reuse of existing commercial properties. Bylaw 1912 was circulated to adjacent residents within 50 meters of the subject property via mail-out in accordance with the town's standard advertising practices. The application was posted on the Town of Strathmore's webpage under Bylaws under Review and was advertised on the town's social media page. To date, staff have not received any letters of objection to the proposed rezoning. However, one letter of support was provided by an adjacent business and was included in the report package. The application is requesting council give first reading to bylaw 1912 for the parcel located at 717 Westlake Road, and that council establish November 20th, 2019 as the date of public hearing.
Thank you very much for your presentation and the good image at the end. Council? Councilor Corbeil?
I move the council give first reading to bylaw number 19-12.
Sorry.
12, sorry. A bylaw holy man. Redesignating 717 Westlake Road from commercial highway to direct control, and that council hold a public hearing for bylaw number 19-12 on November 20th, 2019.
Thank you for the motions, Councillor. Councillor Corbeil. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. And thank you again for your presentation. Which brings us to item 10.3, bylaw number 19-09, procedure bylaw amendment bylaw -1, page 138. Jennifer, are you speaking to this?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, thank you, Worship. So administration is bringing back a amendment to the procedural bylaw that we discussed way back in May, with some amendments to what we discussed. So in the bylaw that council has in front of them, there's basically three main areas that administration is proposing amendments to. They surround council delegations and presentations, as well as the implementation of a consent agenda. We've also included some guidelines and application process as well. So basically, for the presentations and delegations, we have recommended what kind of items can be included to be considered in those presentations, as well as regulations along guidelines, timelines, content, and the application process for both items. For consent agendas, administration is recommending the addition of them to council's order of business. And we've also included items that may be considered under the consent agenda. And also we've included provisions for the ability for council to remove items from the consent agenda to be considered during the regular council order of business. One thing that we did not include in this that council may be wondering about is the time change for the committee of the whole meetings. And that is because council can make that change by resolution. It doesn't have to be done by bylaw. Administration is recommending that council does not include that in the bylaw at this time until after the review of the process, exactly. We've also included in the draft bylaw some a guide for council for using the consent agenda, because it is a new procedure that council will be using. One thing that we're hoping will really help with our delegations is an application process for them. Our plan is to put the application online and to make it available for people to be able to fill out when they want to attend council meetings. Some of the changes in the bylaw surrounding delegations include time limits for delegations that council may want to consider or discuss. There's also, for delegations, we've limited them to 2 per meeting, just to try and help with the timeline of council meetings and trying to not make them too long. But basically, those are the changes. We've talked about them previously. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one. It's the notice of motion. Previously, and actually currently, notice of motions were required to be submitted on the Wednesday prior to, and we haven't been practicing that. We've been doing them, they can be submitted anytime before the meeting. So that change was also included in the recommendations. And I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Jen. I like much of what I see here. Well, I do have a, well, I'll bring up Section 88A, which deals with the 10-minute time frame for delegates, and that's inclusive of questions. So you realize that we'll be making a motion every meeting, every delegation.
So we get to, oh, sorry. Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Worship. Jason. Maybe we should put a procedure about microphones. Yeah. Thank you, Worship. Yes, administration does recognize that the time limit could be restrictive. We were hoping that the provision to extend the time limit would suffice for council in that matter. If not, that's okay. Council can definitely take the exclusive of council questions completely out of that clause.
I just think, I don't know what the rest of the council says, but I'd like to see inclusive change to exclusive. I just, because it'll happen every time, and nobody's gonna, there's no way we're gonna do a delegation and questions in 10 minutes. It just ain't gonna happen. And the other, is there a possibility of requiring any submitted written material or reports to council from delegates or delegations prior to, because it just gives us an opportunity to read some of the material and then and prepare perhaps some more intelligent questions rather than listening to a delegate provide its report.
Oh, you're done?
No.
No?
Jen wants to know.
Oh,
Thank you, Your Worship. So in the application form in the back, it actually does require in the application form that they provide background information as well as any presentations that they'll be giving to council for their presentation. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel, and thank you for that change in wording to affect that 10-minute time. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I think Councillor Montgomery was actually ahead of me before our microphone down.
If you want to go, anyways.
Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Peterson. So back when we initially broached this subject, I had asked for something to be put in related to getting council's approval to basically any sort of late additions to the agenda. So like anything basically that was put on, or like, any, like whether it was, just documentate, anything that was added after the Friday, basically when we get the agenda, I think we should be able to vote on whether to even include it in the agenda.
That's already allowed.
We gotta reply.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. So, Your Worship, that's actually already in the procedural bylaw. The whole purpose of urgent items is for council to deal with anything that comes after actually the agenda deadline on the Wednesday prior to the agenda going out. We haven't been practicing it. So it's in there, but we need to start practicing it.
Yeah, I just mean even like even just adding, like for something that's already, like let's say something that's already in the agenda, just even adding, documentation to it, like the day of or something like that.
Your Worship, it should still fall within those guidelines. Council can accept or reject anything coming forward no matter what it is, even if it's an item already on there and you're getting information after, you can still reject putting that information on the council agenda.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I look at the consent agenda, I think that some of the, in the proposal of the bylaw, I think that one of the things that's really important to include in a consent agenda for the sake of public is that they understand that auditors and external accountant reports, treasurer's reports, and decisions of an executive committee, that all of those things will never be on a consent agenda. And I think that's really key because if there's ever abuse of consent agendas, that's where it happens. And so just for future, I think that is a good thing. And in terms of what Councillor Sobel talked about for committee, if we go to a consent agenda, we will have extra time. We definitely will. And I think that the other thing that happens with consent agendas is that, pity the poor councillor that comes to a meeting not having read the reports, because it is glaringly obvious under consent agenda if that ever is to happen. And so I think Jason makes a really good point. One of the other things that should come under in terms of a consent agenda is request to add new business to an agenda be submitted in advance, and requests for new business could be accepted for a data discussion or whatever. But that can under a consent agenda sometimes that's useful. And then also, I know that that you say on here that anything can be extracted from the consent agenda, and I think the language that I'm familiar with is they say moved down or moved off the consent agenda rather than extracted from it. It's just a minor thing, but I think that those are all good, and it doesn't eliminate the opportunity for council to speak to issues of import on things that are lengthy, but to withdraw things from that. I really like that you've done this, and I really appreciate it. I think it'll be useful.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too appreciate everything, Jen, that administration's done, and love consent agenda. But further to Councillor Sobel's wording change in 88, you'll have to change it in 77C as well, from inclusive to exclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will start the motions.
Perfect.
I move the council give first reading to bylaw number 19-09, procedural bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you for that motion. You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Oh, sorry. With as amended.
Good point. Thank you, and thank you for that, Councillor Sobel. You've all heard that motion, and all in favor? And that motion is carried. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
I will move the council give second reading to bylaw number 19-09, procedural bylaw amendment bylaw as amended.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and you've heard the motion. We have second reading on the floor, so is there any further discussion on that? Just a sneeze, perhaps? All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Cox.
Your Worship, I recommend that council give unanimous consent to a third reading of bylaw number 19-09, procedural bylaw amendment bylaw as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Sobel.
And I would move that council give third and final reading to bylaw 19-09, procedural bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Which brings us to urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business tonight? Anything from admin, Jen? No. Item 12, questions between councillors and/or council statements. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
I just wanted to, we're going into the organizational meeting for all the town committees this evening, and I just wanted to thank everybody that has volunteered in this past year for any sort of committees or any other sort of initiatives in our town. It's volunteerism that helps make this community a great place to live, and I really appreciate, and I'm sure the rest of council really appreciates everyone's efforts. And yeah, we hope that more people will come out in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Makes a lot of sense. And echoing that, I know you people have other jobs and other commitments and things that you must be involved in your own lives. And to have you put in all the extra time in the evenings or in the daytime for some of you is very much appreciated. So thank you. And that brings us to item 13, administrative inquiries. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one inquiry from Councillor Sobel. It's in regards to videotaping of council meetings. The inquiry reads, issues pertaining to the video of council meetings continue to be reported. Poor sound quality, no visibility, substantial portions of the live meetings being missed, and video commencement before the start of actual meetings are just some of the issues being encountered. This council will remain in this building for at least another year. I'm interested in learning what, if anything, can be done to improve our videoing system.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Just a procedural question, Jennifer. At this time, am I adjourning this portion public and then calling to order the organizational meeting?
Your Worship, at this time, council could take a recess and then go back into their regular meeting, as I believe there's a couple in-camera items to still discuss. So,
After the in-camera, we'll call to order the organizational meeting.
Your Worship, I recommend that you call a recess now, and then we'll call the other meeting to order, and then once we're done adjourning that meeting, we'll go back into the regular council meeting.
So a motion for recess? There's no discussion on the motion. Okay. We have a motion from Deputy Mayor Montgomery to take a 3-minute recess. Thank you. Oh, good.
I don't like snow. Too much snow.
I like to think I'm the one who makes your head.
All right. I'd like to resume the regular meeting of October 16th, 2019.
No, we're not resuming. We're gonna bring to
Call order.
Call to order the organizational meeting.
Who's the chairperson here, guys?
I'd like to call to order the organizational meeting of council at 8:53. And at this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any items that have to be added? Any presentations or delegations? I don't believe so. Confirmation of minutes, no. Tabled items, no. Items from administration. The first one is 7.1 council seating arrangement. Jennifer, did you need to speak to that at all?
Your worship, I don't need to. This is just an opportunity for council to have a new spot at the desk if they wish.
I believe Councillor Bauer wanted to sit outside, didn't she, for the meetings?
I'll move that.
Councillor Sobel.
Well, this could be fun.
It was all bad.
Your worship, I would move that council confirm the seating arrangement as it presently sits.
Thank you very much, and thank you for not leaving me, you two. You've all heard the motion, all in favor? And the motion is carried. Item 7.2, council meeting schedule, which is found on page 2. I think you've all seen the schedule.
I was just thinking we should put in our retreat rooms.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. New to the schedule this year, administration has included budget meeting dates. So in November.
They're firm.
We're optimistic.
We should put in our strategic planning dates too.
All right, thank you, and thank you for that added clarification. They are set in stone now, and I know it'll only take 2 days, so that's perfect. So I'm looking for a motion from someone on council. Councillor Corbeil.
I move the council approve the 2020 council meeting schedule as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. You've all heard her motion. All in favor? The motion is carried. And that brings us to the next item, which is council committee appointments. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. If council wishes, I can read into the minutes the committees that council has identified. I do have the changes. So, Your Worship, I have Mayor Fuel on the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board, the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board Servicing Committee, and the Recreation Facility Development Committee. Councillor Sobel, I have for the Sustainability Committee, Traffic Advisory Committee, the CMRB Land Use Committee, the CMRB as an alternate, the Nominations Committee, and the Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce. Councillor Bauer, Emergency Advisory Committee, Strathmore Overnight Shelter, Strathmore Library Board, and the Nominations Committee. Councillor Montgomery, the Library Board, the CMRB Land Use Committee as an alternate, the Financial Audit Committee, the Handy Bus Committee, the Sustainability Committee, and the Nominations Committee. Councillor Corbeil, the Recreation Facility Development Committee, the Emergency Advisory Committee, Strathmore Wheatland Addictions Team, WADEMSA, and the Financial Audit Committee, and the Rogers Hometown Hockey Task Force. For Councillor Peterson, I have the Seniors Advisory Committee, WADEMSA, Seniors Advisory Committee, the Tourism Committee, the Marigold Library Board, and the Wheatland Housing Authority.
Art task force? Does that
And for Councillor Cox, we have the WADEMSA, the Community Futures Wild Rose, and the Wheatland Housing Authority.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So at this time, we're looking for a motion to accept all of those appointments. Councillor Peterson.
I would move that we accept appointments as outlined by Legislative Services, Your Worship, for a one-year term ending October 31st, 2020.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. All in favor? And that motion is carried. which brings us to public member appointments on page 6. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, Council or Administration ran a volunteer campaign this year for Council's committees, and we've received a number of applications from public members to sit on some of Council's boards and committees. The Nominations Committee met to discuss the applications made, and they have made recommendations for appointment. The recommendations are within the report in your agenda. The one committee that is not on the report is the Downtown Vitalization Committee. However, administration is recommending that no appointments be made to that committee at this time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the council accepts recommendations for the committee appointments from the nomination committee and presented and appoints members of the public to the council committees as follows, effective November 1st, 2019 to October 31st, 2020.
Thank you very much, Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? The motion is carried. We have no committee reports. There are no items directly related to council, no bylaws to discuss or urgent business. Are there any questions between councillors and council statements? Councillor Sobel.
Good, no, sorry. Yes, I do have a question, actually. I really appreciate this list that's no longer valid, the committees on which councillors sit. So if it could be amended and sent out, I think everybody would enjoy knowing where everybody sits. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you. So in years previous, we've, let's have to go back here. We had almost like a appreciation dinner for volunteers. I was wondering if we were going to do something like that. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really happy you brought that up. So it's been our practice over the past few years for to have a kind of town-wide volunteer appreciation event in the park. I believe FCSS has done a barbecue in the park over the past few years. Council's going to be seeing a report from Ledge Services within the next couple council meetings in regard to a program to recognize the volunteers that sit specifically on council committees, as well as other members of the public. So I don't know if you remember at the spring retreat, administration brought forward a proposal to actually develop a program for council for recognition of citizens and volunteers, and that is the report that's going to be coming forward. So yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. I believe we have no administrative inquiries, so I'm looking for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Corbeil.
No, I move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Okay, thank you very much. All in favor? Motion is carried.
I will move that we extend the meeting to 10:30. Is it too early for that?
A bit early for that.
All right, then let's go into camera, and then we'll come out of in camera and do it again. All right, I'll move that we go in camera.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And we're going in camera at 9:01. Thank you.